of, I'm going to get it in the wrong order, media, TV, internet, and cable, or in some such order that. So tonight I wanted to do two things. First, I wanted to discuss the legislation that's before us. That is the resolution to create a Utica Common Council Facebook page. So my idea here is very simple. Lots of common councils, the county board of legislators, the mayor all have Facebook pages. These are official Facebook pages that they use just to announce meetings, live stream their meetings, perhaps put up links to minutes, etc. Want me to use, you would rather that I use my microphone. Is that on now? Yeah. That? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, so tonight's meeting of the Media, TV, Web, Internet, Cable, etc. Committee called to order. So this Facebook legislation would establish an official Facebook page for the Utica Common Council. It would be run only by the clerks, and it would only be for official information of the Common Council. Meeting times of all meetings, links to all official documents such as legislation minutes, etc. Perhaps when the mayor made an official announcement like a press release, we might share that on our Facebook page. That's all I'm thinking about for this kind of thing. Lots of other cities have this. Lots of them actually have lots of followers, like upwards of 3,000 followers. And I'm just thinking of this as yet another way to communicate to the public when our meetings are, where they can look at public documents, things like that. And we could also very easily live stream the meetings, which we're already essentially doing on YouTube. This would just be supplemental to that. So clerks, could you just talk, you would be the ones in charge of this. In fact, you'd be the only ones who could do it. You would be the only ones who had the account password and sign-in information. So do you have any issues about how this would work, or whether it would be too time-consuming, too onerous, etc.?
Well, me and the deputy clerk spoke about this, and we read this over. We're perfectly fine with this, just like you said, posting everything, the minutes, basically everything's just going to be regarding council meetings. Right. So the link that we post on Ecode 360 would basically be what we post on Facebook. So they would click on that, and then it would take them directly to Ecode 360 to see the legislation and any like memos or anything that go out for committee meetings and stuff like that. That's what we'll post. We do think, and we agree, that the comments should be shut off. So I don't know if that's something that you all want to discuss, but that's something that we think should be shut off.
Right, if it's meant to be just informative, we don't need the comments. Also, the comments have certain kinds of potential pitfalls. Of one, if somebody asked a question in a comment, somebody would need to answer it, and then that becomes yet another task.
Correct.
It also could be potentially distracting. People could use it for their own agendas, yeah, etc. Judge? Yep.
I want the councilman to know that, as usual, after meeting with the councilperson friend, I discussed this matter with the legal department, and some of the guidelines you see in there were suggested by the legal department. Most importantly, that this is not a conversational situation. People do not comment on our Facebook is done by the clerk. She doesn't respond to anybody. It's just information going out. There's no intercommunication, and that has to be that way. And so it's really the city clerk who does this. It has nothing to do with you. You don't respond to anybody. And it's a way of you, just another avenue for you to make sure the public knows what you're doing and what your meetings are, and even legislation and things of that nature. So it's a broader use of the social media, and as Councilman Friend has correctly stated, the County Board of Legislatures does have Facebook. The mayor has Facebook, and I see. It's not my decision to determine what the Common Council City Utica wants. I'm just saying that I have checked with the legal authorities. I have no problem with it.
Thank
I'd
you,
like
Judge.
to say something on that.
Yeah, Jack.
In today's technology, we have many conduits of communication with our communicating with with the residents of the city here. So I think that we should take advantage of this, and as the co-sponsor of this legislation, I think it's a great idea for us to give every opportunity that we have to put the information out to our constituents. So, Celeste, I thank you for putting this together, and I think it's a great idea.
Thank you, Jack, and I appreciate you being a co-sponsor on it. Does anybody else have any sort of concerns about how we're going to run it? Frank?
I don't have any concerns. We didn't take our group picture yet, did we?
So I just set that up, so we are going to do that. I just got the confirmation this morning, so we're going to do it next meeting,
And we can
probably around
maybe
5
put
o'clock.
our group picture on the,
That's a great
Oh,
idea.
yeah, that's a great idea.
That's a great idea.
is that okay?
I
That
had
could be the cover
specified
photo.
I had specified the dais empty, but I think we could even say just that the photograph would be at the discretion of the clerks, and then you might, every now and then you want to swap out the photograph. So why don't we I will change the wording to say that the cover photo will be at the discretion of the clerks,
Okay,
and then that way, whatever is appropriate.
okay.
So the number 4 that stated that would be that this would be basically the cover page with no
Yes.
people in it. That was you, not the corporation counsel?
That was me.
Okay, good. All right, perfect.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
then-
no, that was me. I was just sort of trying to think about all the
Right.
things that people might,
Yeah, to make it just information.
right.
Can I ask one more question while I have the floor? Okay.
Yes.
It's regarding what the clerks had said about the comments, because I do think it's a good idea to, and it's not a restriction of comments, but while the information is actually being posted, it's used for informational and not a platform for people to kind of go off on tangents on. There was conversation prior about whether or not the comments should be turned on for the YouTube channel, the public streaming. So I think the same goes, whether it's the information going out or the live streams. Will the same apply for the live streams if they're posted there?
I think it will. The clerks and I actually discussed it, and I think that the one reason why I think there would be a benefit of having the comments turned on just during live stream is that it gives people the opportunity, the viewers, to talk to each other in informative ways. So what you can imagine somebody saying is, what's this commissioner of deeds that I keep hearing about? And then somebody else goes, oh, that's XYZ. Is that necessary? Not really. I mean, it's analogous to somebody is sitting public, we've got the public in the room, and they turn to each other and say, why is this a resolution and not an ordinance? And they could answer it for each other.
So-
Is that a big loss to not be able to do that? I don't think so.
Well, it's not that it's a loss. The reason I brought it up was in the context of the council chambers, where the public is clearly here. The council president, whether it's myself, previous when it was Councilman Miola, also our controller was council president one time. The public is obviously here to watch the proceedings and interact through public comment, et cetera. But if the public either starts to congregate in the chambers to a point where they're either interrupting the meeting or the person who's presiding over the meeting, whether it's a committee chair or myself in the context of the main meetings, would rein in that, because what's going on is that the people in the gallery are now not actually paying attention to what's going on in the meeting during the legislative process and talking amongst themselves. And I believe it's important for that to carry over to the live stream platforms, because I want to ultimately make sure that people can communicate and discuss what we're doing fully, to the fullest extent.
Not
But
on
those
this side.
discussions,
Not on this.
discussions should take place after they listen to the full proceedings, especially so that they get the full proceedings and can understand what actually happened and there's nothing that's misconstrued. So I do think it's important to have a way so that the people watch the proceedings and can't go on tangents, because then they may actually miss something that they should be watching.
Right,
All right.
yeah.
That's my.
I think that's,
I just
I
wanted
think
everyone
all
to
that's
just
fine.
think about
Yeah.
that.
Corporation
Well-
counsel was clear.
The way that it is written now, the comments are off.
And that's the way it should be.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm fine with
Corporation counsel
that.
was adamant that the
Well,
last
Leticia.
paragraph has to be in there, and if we want this to pass the muster without any controversy, and not start expanding something that the Councilman Friend and I did not contemplate, had no intention to contemplate, was just information going out. It's not for this tete-a-tete and all that. If you want to come to a meeting, fine. If you want to come in, stream in a meeting, when we're in a meeting, fine. Everything else is hearsay, so to speak, and we're not getting involved. This isn't for you to start a chat
Right.
on this thing. This isn't for you. It's for the clerk and the public, and she's not to be answering questions and all that. She's just posting information.
Right.
That's all it is. Don't try to expand it, band it, don't try to fool with it, because I've got it approved. It's gonna go upstairs. It's not gonna be debated, it'll be approved.
And I think it's great.
And I have to remember that my relationship with the Corporation Counsel's office always has to be what it is. When I make not a pledge to them, but when we both agree on something, and there's no need to fuss with it, fine. If you don't want to approve it, however, that is not ours to say, upstairs or downstairs. You don't want to do it, fine, you don't vote for it. But if you vote for it and you're asking for us to give you the guideline, we expect you to follow the guideline, because then you don't have any problems upstairs, because it's already been cleared with upstairs, the people who count, the legal people. So I don't think you should entertain anything other than what's on the written paper. Don't try to make it something it is not. And that was the fear in the beginning about this, that you were going to do something that was not. No, we weren't going to do that. And when councilperson friend and I talked about it,
Right.
we were very circumspect that we would make it as simple as possible. This is the clerk.
Right.
She's sending out notice. That's it. This is not a debate society.
Right. Thank you, Judge.
And
Thank
thank
you.
you, Councilperson Friend.
Delvin
for the floor.
Moody?
It's very.
I'm sorry, what was
No,
that?
I was just saying thank you for the floor, because it was kind of like looped in here.
Right.
And
You're welcome.
this is good.
Yeah.
It'll be another
This is-
avenue.
This is
so.
good. Part of the way in which I think about this is that it's analogous to the newspaper, and nobody gets to comment on the newspaper except, their husband across the kitchen table. What are they up to again? And this should be sort of, in some ways, is like the newspaper, a one-way street, right? So, Mr. Moody had a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, first of all, I love the idea. I think this goes into a bigger conversation about digital governance and how we interact, especially given the pandemic that we've gone through, how we interact with constituents and the public on a digital platform. My question is to the clerks. How would you deal with, I shouldn't say a
Are you
question.
using your microphone?
Yeah, more so being open to when folks make a message to us. Young people use Facebook as a primary means of communication. They're not oftentimes willing to call, and so being willing to pass on communications that you deem necessary. For example, someone might see the Utica Common Council page and say, I need a no parking sign, which is the thing we get called about all the time, right? So using that messaging feature maybe to pass on those things, because that will most likely happen. You might get requests through the messaging feature of Facebook just because Facebook is,
No, leave it on.
a thing that people utilize. So I don't know if we thought through that component. of it.
That did occur to me. Clerk, do you have a response to that? What do you think about that?
Or if we get
See, that
individual
was-
message, like a council
Does
person might
anybody-
get a message.
Can
I
the
have the
message
floor?
function, let me ask a point of information, you may know this, does the message function on Facebook have an automatic reply the
Well,
way
so
that
that's
email
what I was going to
does?
reply.
Wait,
And
can I
I know
say-
I'm the
can I
council
have the
president. I do
floor?
work with the clerks a lot informationally. So for this one, I'll kind of take it.
Yeah,
A lot of restaurants and venues do that. What we should do is format, maybe add it to the resolution, the message we want to go out with the automatic reply.
okay.
And then just write the resolution so it states whichever council people, of course, are in place, so it doesn't have to be passed again. But basically, any question that goes out, it could be auto-replied that we could have all the listings of the council people, their phone numbers and email addresses, go right out with that, and then have some, for codes, et cetera. It could be just a textbook thing that goes out informational so that they know exactly who to
Or
call.
it could be even simpler, which is to simply email the clerk.
Well, of course.
That would be even simpler, I
Well,
think.
so hang on, though.
Because they may not,
Yeah, but the whole purpose, let me expand on this for a second. Let me expand on this. And this is coming from running some professional Facebook pages as well. The whole purpose of that auto response message is to get the information that a young person who is messaging on purpose, expecting that instant answer they're looking for. They may not necessarily want to say, oh, okay, a message to Facebook, now it's telling me to email the clerk, right? If it's 2 a.m. in the morning and they message the Facebook page because they want to call Councilman Moody and figure out what his phone number and email address, and they message the Facebook page and they get that auto response with his information or Mark's information or Frank's or whoever's it is, they're going to go, oh, this is great. And then at the end of that, if that information that you're looking for is not there, then you email the clerk. That's typically how the auto responses that I've dealt with are set
That's a
up.
telephone call.
Yeah.
Just call a telephone.
So that's my suggestion. Whatever you're going to do it.
Okay, Mr. Beatrice?
Yes, so we've been doing this for 20 minutes already. We all agreed it was going to be informative, and we keep jumping around and we keep adding more and more to it. To be honest with you, well, it's my opinion, okay. We started that it's going to be informative. That's where we need to go. I don't think we really need to know. I think everybody in my district, they know how to get a hold of me. They know how to call the clerk here. I don't understand what we're going at. Before we know it, we're going to end up in the Utica topics again, and we don't want to go there. That's my opinion. Okay,
Can I-
I'm just telling you, it's
Well,
my
I'm just saying,
opinion.
address Celeste.
Okay,
I'm not.
I'm all for this,
Right.
but we already started. The judge met with Corporation Counsel.
Right.
He said what we were doing. You agreed. He agreed. And now all of a sudden, first we're starting with comments, then we're starting with messages.
Well, but
That's
we-
not what we
No, that's
started
how-
with.
First
that's
of
how
all, we
Facebook
agreed that we're
works.
going to keep the
That's how
message.
Facebook
We
works.
agreed that all of the comments are going to be kept off. So we didn't add anything. We haven't added anything. We all agreed that the comments will
Okay.
stay off, both in the regular posts and in the live streaming. So
Okay.
we haven't added anything there.
Okay.
The question that Mr. Moody raises is a good one. People will message us. What do we think is the best way to respond to that? Now, I take your point, Mr. Galimi, and I think you've got a good point. Where I would like to suggest that we start is that we start today with an automatic reply that simply redirects things to the clerk's email. And if 6 months from now, the clerk wants to come back to us and say, you know what, I'm getting 10 of these a week, and it's actually turning into a problem, can we fine tune it? Then we'll fine tune it.
Right, and then basically, like with the restaurant, I deal with this a lot with restaurants up north. I message them for a reservation, I get that autoresponder, but then what they're doing internally is that message also goes to their employees. So
We're not a restaurant.
if we were going to extend it, that message would of course be auto-responded, but then it would of course,
We're not a
it
restaurant.
could be then sent to the council, no different than when someone emails the clerk and she forwards it to the council.
Okay, can you suggest tonight, Mr. Galimi, since I do want to get this passed tonight, how we need to reword this in the resolution so that we can get this through tonight? An automatic reply in the messaging system.
Yeah, I'll just Google the exact directions on set it up.
Well, I want to know what you guys are really talking about.
Can't we just do this?
Right. You should.
I think we're starting.
Don't have the,
Let's-
don't
please
have
let
the
Mr.
message
Brown-
on
Well, no,
there.
so-
If you have any questions, contact the clerk
Yeah.
or email the clerk. Put it right on our page.
Yeah.
We will not accept any messages or responses and put it right there. What I like to also put on there is the rules of order here for
Right.
public
Public
speaking,
com- yeah.
things of that nature, so people are prepared when they come in. But that's my opinion. Put it on there.
I was just saying, I'm going to Google the actual exact keyword. It's not, I don't think it's called autoresponder. Whatever the Facebook term is, I want to make sure it's in the legislation when you guys add it. That's all.
And let me make the point that we're not saying different things. I'm not saying that we should add it. I'm saying by the feature of Facebook, you cannot turn off messages. Therefore, what are you going to do if we get a message? That was my only question. I'm not trying to add to the resolution, change anything. It's a feature of Facebook. What do you do when we get a message?
Right. I do like Mr. DeBrango's suggestion that we also want to include the rules for public comment as a document, as sort of a freestanding document that we would include in there, or as a link to Ecode 360 directly, or something like that.
And the social distancing for now, and then we can change it later.
Right.
This is information out, not information. We're not a restaurant. We're not anything else. And also the city clerk can only put out that which she has the authority to put out. She puts out a schedule. She puts out maybe legislation. She does things of that nature. She cannot respond. It is not her duty nor her obligation, nor would it be right that she speak for anybody. That's why they don't have a debate system here, because she has no authority to speak for anybody. And I tell you over and over, the only authority you have as a councilman is when you're in this room and we have convened for a meeting. What you do on the outside is of really no legal value. And also, the time-honored way, and I agree completely with Councilman Beatrice, the time-honored way and the best way for you as representatives is have people directly speak to you, because they're really speaking to you about what's happening that they think he has knowledge of in their district. If the councilman at large, what the city. And I think that's the best form of communication, because there is no miscommunication. The only one who is liable for what they say is the person on the other end, meaning the councilman. He doesn't represent you, he doesn't represent her, he doesn't represent her. He's just saying what he thinks. And that doesn't mean, and even when somebody, that's why I don't comment. You don't see me on television, you don't see me on the radio. You know why? It's not my job to do that. I'm not gonna speak words for you. I'm not giving legal opinions to people who didn't pay me to give them to me. You did, that's all. And I'm not gonna say anything that would compromise you in any way whatsoever. And that is when the clerk has the same type of relationship with you in that regard that I do. We had a very simple concept here, Councilman Friend, that she brought, and she put it, and she got the directions from the Corporation Council through the clerk, because I had them, the Corporation Council, give you the information, then I listen. And then I said, you relate that to Councilman Friend, so that when she draws the legislation, how she wants the wording, and I get it, those precepts have to be in there, because that's what they're going to approve upstairs. I don't say that they were against this, I don't say they were for it, they just say you have a right to do this. And I don't know why we're having this long debate about something. It's just the whole concept is there. We're sending out information, that's all.
Right.
We're not
Mr.
in a debate.
Galimi?
They want to talk to you, and
Right.
if you're on Facebook, fine. If you are on anything, but you only speak for yourself. In your no official capacity when you do so. And the best comment and best relationship you can have with people is a personal relationship. They
Mr.
know
Galimi?
Councilman
Right.
Lemetico, because he talks to me, calls me out. That's the best way. That's how you communicate. And we don't use some artificial device to do that.
Thank you,
And-
Judge. Mr. Galimi?
And that's all I have to say about it. I don't know why this has taken such a long time. Because it wasn't really something I got. And we're following the precepts upstairs and downstairs.
All right.
No more
So,
communication.
so
If you don't believe what upstairs and downstairs tell you, what's the point of speaking?
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Galimi?
all right, so Judge and the council members, like 500% agree. No, with what you're saying. No. First off, I completely agree wholeheartedly with everything that came down from upstairs. The reason Councilman Moody brought this up is we did miss one fine detail, and that's what happens when somebody uses the feature which we can't turn off, which is the messages. And if someone messages that Facebook page, we simply just need to configure, and the wording is automated responses space instant reply, to send an automated message with the phone numbers and email addresses of the council people, so that when someone messages that page, they are directed to contact their council people. And that's simple. It's just, we just missed one fine detail.
Right.
And that's all. There's
yeah.
no real debate or discussion on how the page is going to work. It's just there is a messaging feature, and what we don't want is people trying to communicate with people personally over the general council page. So we just want to configure an automated response to that feature. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Galimi. And that will be easy to fix, and I'll be able to figure out the wording of that.
So I just have one question on that.
Yeah.
So they get on the Facebook, right? And they're looking at it. So now they're gonna comment us. Boom, 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 and they send it.
Comments are on.
So
No
how do
comments.
So what are you referring to then?
It's message. It's called
It's a
message.
message.
And
Instant
it's,
messenger?
no,
Yeah, you know how someone can send you a direct message?
can I have the floor?
Yeah.
Thank you. On Facebook,
Right, I have
one of
Facebook.
the things that you can do with Facebook is privately send messages back and forth. So I could go on Facebook, I could open Facebook, and I could open my messenger thing,
Right.
and I could send a private text to Delvin
Right.
that says, hey, can we go drinking? Coffee. And that would only go to him.
Right.
Right? So, and you cannot get rid of that feature on Facebook. It's there, and Mr. Galimi is absolutely right. There will be people who will automatically use it in order to message us. And they will message, as Mr. Moody says, to say, hey, how can I get a no parking sign for my street?
All right, with
We
the
need-
follow-up, so there's a tool we could use
Yes.
on
so let
Facebook
me-
that
yep,
will
so let me
automatically.
finish. Yep. So what we're suggesting, since we cannot get rid of the messaging feature, what we are suggesting is that there will be an automatic response.
You could put that on there.
Yes, we can put that on there. The clerks can put it on. They will automatically get a response that says, thank you for your inquiry. All inquiries should be directed to your council person, and then they can list names and say email addresses.
All right, I'm fine with that. All right.
This message will not be directly responded to. Please reach out to your council person with all inquiries, and then it will list,
You guys know how to do that?
and they know how to do
All
that.
right, good.
And I'll rewrite I will
right.
dash out something.
Do
I just wanna make
do
sure
you
we're
want your
covered on
phone
that.
numbers on there that you gave us, that we give out to the public when they
Right.
call?
So the
Or is-
same information, so emails and phone numbers, just like you would give out if somebody called you and said, I live on South Utica and I have a pothole. And then
Okay.
you would give out my phone number and my email, so it would be the very same thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Whatever's on the city webpage.
Exactly.
All right.
So,
Is there anybody,
yeah, Jack?
is there anybody here that doesn't like this legislation? Please speak up.
That's fine.
Is everybody fine with it?
I,
There you
Right.
go.
the only thing, the only concern I have is when people message for information and stuff, that we have some council people in the past that would go outside their area of operation, I'll put it that way. I'm talking about the districts. We had people go in your district before, it had nothing to do with your district, but they're leading legislation in your area, which is not right. It's inappropriate, and I think it's wrong. And that's the only concern I have, is when people call, or they need something, or, Joe Beach is gonna jump on something that belongs to West Utica because he knows the person, you know what I mean?
Well, we're actually, yeah,
Well,
can
no,
may
just-
I?
I think
May
it has to be something that we all discuss, like we did in the past, that we stay in our area of operation.
May I? We won't see the messages. Only the clerks are going to see these messages. So since we don't own since we're not going to be the operators of the page, but only they are, literally, if they get an email that says, hey, I live on Holland Ave and there's a crater in front of my house, they're going to get this automatic response that says, reach out to your council person, and they'll get my contact information. I literally will not see that message, because the council page will only be administered by the clerks.
And we already have the map up on Eco 360 for all the different districts.
No, I'm just saying, as a crew here, which we are, that we stay in our lane, I'll put it that way.
Right.
Because we have some people that like to play politics and get involved in other people's areas. It has nothing to do with your area, but you're leading legislation on somebody else's area, which is not right, it's inappropriate. The only people who can do that is us three.
Right.
Because we're at
Right,
large.
right. I agree with that. I
I
didn't.
want to know the legislation.
Well, wait, can I just?
No. I want to know the legislation that was led, and I want to know if you speak of facts or opinion.
I'm not gonna discuss previous council people.
Okay.
So this is not about the present council.
I didn't
Okay.
say that.
Okay. So can I just say,
If you wanna start attacking, we can
Okay,
attack.
so
We can do that.
I'd like the floor back. I'd like the floor back. So I appreciate the concern, and I can see how that could be a problem. This will not contribute to that, because as I say, it is not like we'll all see the message and then one of us goes, ooh, I'm gonna hop on that.
Exactly.
We
That's what I'm
won't-
trying- That's what I'm trying.
This Facebook council page should not in any way contribute to that problem.
All right, I think we beat it to
I
death.
think we did too.
Okay.
Can I just say one more thing before we close this meeting?
I thought
So-
you beat it to death.
And then some. And then to make sure, right. I had requested Frank Matolo to be present at this meeting because I also wanted to discuss the city website. He's not here, so I don't want to, we're just about, we could stay on track with time if we don't discuss this. But I did spend a whole bunch of time today going through the city website. It has some flaws that need to be addressed. And I'm not going to, I won't go over them now, but I do have a long list of things that I really wanted to ask Frank Matolo about. So I would like to request that Frank Matolo be at our 6 o'clock meeting on June 16th. And can you request that if he's not going to be here, he would explain that and let us know in advance?
Can you send him the list prior to that meeting?
Yes,
Thank you.
I will make a point of meeting with him before then.
You could dial in maybe, whatever.
But I think also too, another way, if you don't need a meeting, you could just submit it through the Utica Prosperity Initiative.
Yeah, oh yeah, no, I know, but I'd like to have a better understanding of how exactly we're updating or perhaps not updating our current website before we move forward and think about how to have a better website.
No, let's just find out what our capabilities are. first
Exactly,
before we begin.
exactly. Okay, with that said, if anybody want to get the last word in on the simple matter of having a Facebook page, I call this meeting adjourned.
Second.
All right, nice work.
I want to start.
To order. Today is June 2nd. This is the pre-caucus caucus meeting. We'll actually give the judge one more minute.
You waiting for me? Oh, okay, I'm sorry, Council. Yes, go ahead.
All right, we're going to start off with resolution number 1. This is a resolution amending the Appendix A to 2-2-86 of the Utica City Code regarding financial disclosures. Does anyone have any questions or concerns? Same as.
So what's the change that we made? We added things to it?
Yep.
What did we add to it that wasn't on it before?
Third whereas.
I want to, can I? I'm sorry. I
You have
want
the floor.
to, as a member of the Harbor Point Committee, Jack and myself, we have not seen any of this. So if it's possible, can we put this in committee until our next meeting? Because I talked to the head of the committee today, Mr. Gilroy, and we're not ready to vote on this.
Is there a time?
Well, can I state something procedurally?
You have the floor. Mr.
This isn't the decision of the Harbor Point Land Development Corporation. So
Okay. All right.
this is
You already did it already.
It's standard.
Most of us already did it already, right? All they're doing is adding to this.
I did mine today.
So, if there's any concerns,
I-
if you do it once, you don't have to do it on any boards that you sit on also. You don't have to put one on each board. If you did one, you're a council member, so you put your disclosure statement into the corporate council, you don't have to do any more than that.
Yeah, since I've been on, this is
What's that?
fine.
All right.
Good.
They're just gonna have to follow the lead, that's on them. Not everyone else. That's just part of being on the committee.
All right, so next is resolution number 2. This is full council. It's an, do we have the
You don't have the July
dates?
date or the August date again.
What dates have we come up with?
What are our options?
I think let the clerk pick.
Clerk?
We have July 7th, 14th, 21st, and 28th. So whatever works for.
28th.
I would like the 21st.
21st is good.
July 21st, does that work for everybody?
Does
What-
July
what-
21st work?
July 21st is, that's a Wednesday?
It's always a Wednesday, yes.
They're
Yep.
always Wednesday.
Yeah.
You got the president's got his hand up?
Yep.
No, he's good with the.
well, no. So I was just going to say that typically, for years, what we've done is pick the one in between the two meetings that would have taken place,
Right.
rather than pick one of the meetings. That way, it splits the difference.
So the 14th.
Yeah.
That would be better for me, but
Okay.
whatever you guys
Yep,
want.
so July 14th. And then in August, we have August 4th, 11th, 18th, and 25th. But if you want, we could just do the 11th
Yeah, that's
Or
fine.
the 18th.
or the 18th.
Please don't do it the
18th?
No.
Day after my birthday, I'll be a little bit.
All right.
Can we do it the 11th, please?
We can
Perfect.
do it the 11th in order to not conflict with Frank's 3-day birthday celebration.
Perfect. So the announcement of dates for July and August, regular common council meeting. Be it resolved that the common council of the city of Utica does hereby schedule its regular July and August meeting for Wednesday, July 14th, 2021 at 7 p.m. and Wednesday, August 11th, 2021 at 7 p.m. Respectively, to be held in the common council chambers.
Can I just briefly, I would love it if next year we did this 1 month earlier, that's all. Just for the sake of, advanced birthday planning.
We're sitting here and you're sitting here, why don't you start it?
Next is resolution number 3. I believe you want this full council?
It would be
Is
great if
everybody-
everybody else would like to come in on this.
Well, I got
So we're gonna go full council on this?
Yes, yes, yes.
You're right.
The resolution to create Utica Common Council Facebook page. Next is it supposed to have a number on it?
No, it's a local law.
The local law.
It's the Is the first one for 2021?
Introduction, local law.
The one that, local law number 1 was introductory local law number 6 of 2022.
Okay.
You guys passed it in December, I think it was December 16th meeting, but then it wasn't officially adopted, signed by the mayor until 2021.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So this is the first local law of 2021.
Well, that's the thing, is that it's the first introductory. So if this becomes law, then it would be local law number 2 of 2021.
Okay. Okay.
But it's introductory.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. Local law establishing Juneteenth as a public holiday in the city of Utica.
Can I introduce it?
Of course.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I want to thank my colleagues for coming to Juneteenth just about every year. Chancellor Park and other places, Robbie Dancy, who all of you all know, you've often supported that down through the years. Juneteenth is a very important holiday for so many in that it's in the local law. After President Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, there were African Americans in Texas for 2 years still in slavery, even though they were actually free. So over the last really 5 or 10 years, 5 or 7 years, this holiday has really been coming up in full steam. The state is looking, I think they will be, or already have made it a state holiday for their employees. A lot of school districts and colleges have already, even though it is not a federal holiday, has already given that time off for a lot of their employees and students. And in addition to that, a lot of cities across the state, their common councils or city councils have made it a local public holiday to come in line with the school districts and the colleges in the area. So this is, I think, a great addition to the public holidays that we have in our city. I believe many of the folks are on board with this, and so I'm putting it as an introduction of a local law to make Juneteenth, June 19th, a public holiday in our city.
Can I have the floor?
Yeah, I just got a couple questions on that. Couple questions. So is the city school district already onto that now? Did the school, are they following this?
I know Rome is.
No, Utica. Is
Yeah,
Utica?
I know. I'm not certain if there's a final decision from this school district.
And this extra days that you're talking about, are they extra days or are they gonna have to be supported? I mean, are they gonna have to be substituted?
I believe the substitution is for either election day or another day.
And so how would, like, I mean, I was in a union for years, doesn't that have to be negotiated and that type thing, or? And like, I have no idea, I'm just asking you the questions.
It can be negotiated, but this local law would say that this would be a standing holiday, and the others would be negotiated that may come up. So this would make Juneteenth.
If they had 11 days, if the DPW has 11, and I'm throwing numbers out there, has 11 days off.
This would give them 12.
Right, so that would have to be negotiated then, right? Okay.
Which is happening.
No, I just heard 2 different answers.
No, which is happening currently.
Right. So, would they have to, the city then would have to cancel a vacation day in lieu of this one?
I think that's part of the negotiation. That's an option. This is what would make an addition to that. This would say that this is a standing day, that this is a standing public holiday.
So again, I'm not against it or anything, but I just want to make, is this something that we can do until we discuss it with the unions?
That's my concern.
Yeah,
I don't know, I don't know though.
it's gotta sit, it's a local law, it's gotta sit for 7 days on the table anyways to start
Right,
with.
so,
So if you-
does the council need to contact the local
I would contact the
labor
unions and
to
find
see
out
if they're-
what the issue
Well,
is.
we can't vote
I
on
don't know.
something if we don't know what's gonna be passed.
No, so this is an introduction,
Right.
right, to say that we want this to be a standing holiday, right? The negotiations are, I think, in 2 films, whether to supplement or to supplement by adding an additional day or supplement one of the holidays, right? Either way, the idea is that Juneteenth would be a public holiday in both scenarios.
In other words, may I?
You have.
In other words, those are just separate freestanding questions. One is, do we, the council, make this a holiday of the city? And then there's a separate question about how, how the city then negotiates with unions about how to handle that fact if we were to pass it. Those just seem to me like completely freestanding questions. So, I just wanted to say that I'm in support of this. I think this is a great idea. I think, we traditionally, I think in the last few years, have thought of Juneteenth as something that African Americans celebrate. I would hope that all Americans would be really proud that we ended slavery. So I would hope that we would all
Right.
want this to be a national holiday.
And for many, just to go, for many, this is a Saturday, so it's not like a weekday, which is helping the negotiations for a lot of.
So it'd be
Saturday, always,
Saturday.
yeah. It's not like a Friday or a Monday. It's a Saturday. So, it's a
So would it be
small
even though
subset.
it's a Saturday, it'd be a paid, they
Yeah,
get
it's a
paid?
very small. So yes.
So they'd still get paid for it. I'm sorry, I don't have the floor. May I have the floor?
You
One
have
more
the floor.
question?
Yeah.
So my only concern with it's a great idea and everything. I don't know if it's within our pay grade to vote for something that we don't know can get through. That's my only question. If it's got to go through unions and got to go through school districts and everything like that, how can we say you can have it all? You know what I mean?
This wouldn't impact, Mr. President, I know he has his hand. This wouldn't impact the school district. This is coming in line with. Right, yeah, right.
the unions within the city
Absolutely.
and all that.
Mr.
Council President, you have the floor.
I was just going to state that as long as the local law doesn't attempt to state that it's a mandated day off, it's no different than any other public holiday. For example, there are multiple holidays. I work in the private sector, right? I don't have Columbus Day off.
Right.
I don't know if it's Labor Day. There's a couple of the public holidays that all of the state and federal employees have off. I don't have off. So
President's Days, when I worked for Coke, we never had
same
them
with you.
off.
We don't have some of those days off. So if this legislation was passed and designated this a public holiday in Utica, it doesn't necessarily mandate that it's a day off for anyone. It just then, as Councilman Moody is saying, it recognizes it, and then if unions wanted to then go and negotiate that after the fact, that's up to them.
Yeah, but-
No different than any other line of work.
Yeah, if you read section 501, the city charter establishes common councilors have the right to control hours of employment
Right.
for all departments.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So as it's passed final, that's up to you guys if it does designate that or not.
So
But
my inclusion to explain the reason why I put section 5001 was to say, to kind of minimize the question that we don't have authority to even do this. So I was trying to say that we have an authority to even do it based upon section 5001. Now, that's not to say, like Mr. Galimi said, that it is to suggest that you will have the time off, but it tries to lay a foundation that we have the power to do it in general. I tried to anticipate some of the questions that might happen.
Well, don't you think it should be simple language where the common council does not authorize this to be a paid holiday?
But
For any type of employment or what do you call it?
I think that.
You wanna make it simple.
But I think that limits the negotiation.
There is no negotiations if you don't want it to work, if you're not using it for a paid holiday.
But if the unions say that they are okay with that, then why?
Well, then you gotta hit one way or another. Do you want it to be a paid holiday for the unions or you don't? That's the question. You can call it a holiday, okay, it's a holiday, we respect what happened back there, but is it a paid holiday? That's what you're writing in your legislation.
But isn't that always a matter of negotiation? Couldn't we, in theory, negotiate with the unions that we're only going to give them Memorial Day or Labor Day, but not both? That's always negotiable.
Those are state, this is a local holiday. This is not state. This is not state holiday.
Okay.
The listing underneath are state holidays.
Okay.
State voted on it.
Who knows, it might turn into a federal holiday down the road anyway.
Right, and it could be a federal holiday.
Some of that happens.
So if you wanna do it with no funding, has to do with the holiday, It has to say right below that.
Yeah, that's to an approved, that's to an approved plan
I don't think
development,
that
plan development district.
It's only one of you guys finding errors.
I don't know.
amendments.
Yeah.
The whole
from
law.
judge. I don't think this legislation said it has to be fixed.
Do you want to ask him?
Yes.
What happened to section?
Judge Garamone?
Judge Garamone?
Judge?
Yes, ma'am.
Delvin Moody has a question for you.
What's your question, sir?
In your legal opinion, my inclusion of whereas section 5001 of the city charter that says that the common council reserves the right to control the hours of employment of all departments and employees unless otherwise prohibited by law or ordinance, would that infer that we are trying to suggest that Juneteenth will be a paid holiday? Or does it suggest that we have the authority to make a holiday?
Well, because this is a question of first impression, I looked at that, and I had the same thoughts that when you declare that it's a Utica holiday, does that mean that the people who work in City Hall have the day off, and all those union contracts and all those other contracts all would have to be amended, and all those people would be paid for that day because it's a holiday. And then the problem with the unions is there are just so many holidays that are recognized in this country, and by state. But what the state of New York does and what Arizona does is two different things. Because our states that don't have Martin Luther King either. I don't know if there are anymore, but there was a couple of them, maybe that's not why anymore, or whether Columbus Day is in every state, I don't know. But for the city of Utica, to call something a holiday,
Is it possible we can put this in committee to make it a statement from the corporate council?
What that means. I have to say,
Also,
I don't know that that section is ever tested, and for me to give you a legal answer tonight would practically be impossible. But I do know that if somehow infers that they are not working that day, because the only one you can give a holiday to in the city of Utica, I don't think private industry, that affects them obviously, unless that's the federal or state. But it would affect, I think, the city of Utica and all those union contracts, because they have to pick what holidays they pick and get paid for. Like the city court is in the state, we work the day after Thanksgiving. Nobody else did, but we did. The New York State Court is open the day after Thanksgiving. Well, everybody around us, the DA, the common, and all these other people, they're not here.
So how can you have court
Well,
without the DA and
the
everything?
court is open and we're there.
Wow.
So,
So a final,
see, so, it's not, it's a little bit of a complicated issue.
If I took out section-
I have to be honest, I don't have the answer.
if I took out section 5001, which talks about employment in general,
Yeah.
this local law would simply, like other holidays, would simply make Juneteenth a designated holiday in the city by which the unions can choose in negotiation to either accept as a holiday or not.
Well, I don't know.
Would they get
that-
holiday pay?
I don't know that that's the
Because, you know,
criteria.
I think that would be their choice, but at least on this local law, it's given an option. It's not saying, because
It's not an option, it's an
Let-
agreement
let-
of
just-
contract.
let me-
No, 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 what I'm
just
saying
back
right
you up.
now is
I
not a
don't know
holiday
that the
within
city
the
Utica
select.
has the authority to declare a holiday that is recognizable under the unions of the state of New York. And in civil service, employment
recognized.
agency, and,
Why are we waiting till we get-
and also, I think you have a date, don't you, like June 19th? That's what you're talking about?
26th.
Are you talking about June 19th?
I'm talking about June 19th.
So whenever June 19th fell, they wouldn't be working that day in the city. And who knows what day of the week that falls?
But the
Okay,
unions can't pick a day that's not a holiday, right?
I had a question on this, maybe this would, being that this looks like it's gonna be a little, we're gonna have to work with the unions. can we do a resolution this year that June 9th, that June 19th was declared a holiday or declared a special day in the city? And that way we got some time to work on this and make it a law.
You could make it a day of recognition.
Well, just, right, but
which is different.
what Delvin's concern is he would like to make it a holiday, and it appears that there's certain questions that we have to work through. But we could at least make it a resolution, and then, well, long as he doesn't,
It
but,
always falls on a Saturday, right, Delvin, you said? So what happens if city workers, they're gonna take Friday off, they're gonna come in and work on Saturday, now we gotta pay them?
but see, but this is stuff that we can't decide.
I don't know.
What, these are things that we can't decide, but we could at least move your thing forward here, move this June day forward here, and make sure it falls on that day and everything can happen. And then, in the meantime, figure out exactly what has to be done, and if it's feasible actually to make it a law, and if the unions would be agreeable to it. Because you want to get something done right away, correct?
Not only that, but I'm listening to what everyone is saying about the union part.
Right.
But my question is really not a question, but the unions can't select a holiday if it's not a holiday, right? They can't just say June 5th, we all want off, right? Because it's not a holiday. So this local law is to say that June 19th is a holiday, which gives you the option
To pick from it.
to pick from.
It is now
You
on
can't
the
pick
table.
from it now because it's not a holiday.
I don't think it'll be on the list for.
And all I wanna do-
recognized- I don't think the city of Utica can surpass the federal and state government about what they declare holidays and which are.
Sure.
Recognized and they get to pick. That everybody else in the city and the county gets the day off. You see, that Columbus Day is the day off, everybody gets that. And that sort of thing. Whereas in Utica, the only people would be, say, the city employees don't work that day, June 19th.
No,
is a Thursday.
No, it's not about, it's
As long as you
not.
put it in committee and let.
You gotta
if
worry
put
about
it in
holiday pay,
committee-
the contracts, we gotta worry about this.
I don't know that the people upstairs have seen this, I just saw it tonight.
Let's work it out, let's put
So
it
I-
in committee.
In the meantime, would you like to
No, I
do a
did see it
resolution?
Before today, but.
Yeah, resolutions are great.
Can I-
Recognizing the date, that's fine.
Can I have the floor for a second, though?
You may.
I'm surprised by this idea that the city itself couldn't declare something a holiday that the state hasn't declared a holiday. Now, I know this analogy is problematic.
The state has.
Well, the state has declared it a holiday.
Yeah.
So the state has declared it a holiday. But also, like,
What kind of holiday?
Is it a paid holiday?
it's a state holiday.
Yes, all of the employees, corrections officers, this is what I wanted to say, but they all had the day
19th
off.
is a state holiday.
Yes.
Yes, in the state of New York. But also, can I just, like, in Boston, where I'm from, April 15th, I can't remember what it's called, is it Patriots Day? There's like a holiday that's the only holiday that, I don't know, this idea that a city doesn't have the authority to declare a holiday if the state hasn't already, doesn't make sense to me. I mean, I know
This just puts it on the list.
yeah,
This
just makes it
puts
an option.
On the list.
Council President?
The question of negotiation is still completely separate with the
Floor.
unions.
I don't give legal answers to something I don't know the answer to.
You have the floor.
Looks like the council's going to want to put this in committee anyhow, but I'd like to request that the council thinks about this a bit differently. So this is really a question to just civics. We have federal, state, county, and local government.
I'm sure it's in there, I just don't know where it is. It was probably moved to a
And if the council would like to declare via local law anything a holiday, they technically could. And if the legislation is doing just that and has nothing to do with trying to mandate days off or anything with union contracts, because not everyone who works for the city is union as well, which is the other thing I wanted to state. Okay. So there is nothing wrong within the question of civics that a local government in its local purview could or could not declare a local law to designate anything a holiday. This is one example of one that could be done. All of the other implications, as long as nothing in this local law, when it's passed, if it's passed, designates any of that, would affect any of that. All of those other negotiations we're bringing up, all that other stuff is all ancillary. It's all separate after the fact. This is just simply a question of whether the city of Utica, this council, wants to consider a local, well, not necessarily as it's written. You guys have other things to work on, like you were saying you were questioning. But if we simply pass a local law to designate a holiday, that's up to the legislative body to do. And if that's the case, when you step outside of Utica, it no longer affects you because it's our local law. And I do really think this is just a high-level question of civics, whether the smallest form of local government, in our case, the city of Utica, wants to do that via local law. Simple. That's it. It doesn't really affect any of that other stuff.
We got it on table, so we got those days to figure out, hey,
Yeah, 7 days. Hey, listen, he's right,
It's-
it is a local law of the state, so.
It is, yeah,
Lay
exactly.
it on the table today.
Yep.
Then next
Yep.
meeting, we
Yep.
pass it.
Absolutely.
And I will.
Lay it on the table without that 5001 if you want it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, just lay it on the table. Done deal.
All right, moving forward. Ordinance number 4, Councilmember Burmaster, handicap parking locations, ordain that section 2-16-378, Schedule W, handicap parking locations is amended to include the following: Maple Street, 1,301 Maple Street, 30 feet west of Martin Street intersection. Be it further ordained that the proper signage be erected where necessary. Are you okay with that? Next is authorizing the sale of wine and beer to Ashley Lynn Winery. The sponsor is Ashley Lynn Winery. The name of the event is Carnival Eats Utica. The date is Friday, June 10th from 4 to 8, Saturday, June 11th from 4 to 8, and Sunday, June 12th from 12 to 8. Location of the event is the side parking lot of the Utica Auditorium, 400 Oriskany Street West, Utica. Any questions or concerns?
I only got one. As long as she's got a state permit to sell alcohol.
She does. We confirmed it, yep.
And can we ask her if next year, if she wants to do this again, that she might consider getting this to us a little sooner? It's not a big deal, but.
Councilperson Friend, I know you have a question for,
Somebody.
yes,
Yes.
for Brian Thomas.
Yes, Commissioner Thomas, I have a question for you tonight. This is, so I'm circling around to a discussion that we had, it feels like 6 weeks ago, which means it was probably 2.5 months ago, right? So about the ESG funds. We had a meeting where we had Danielle from the Home Ownership Center, and we were talking about the various kinds of hurdles to giving out that rent relief in terms of making sure that we met all the legal criteria before we actually handed it out. So the question that arose for me after the fact, and that I finally have the chance to circle around to, what happens if we don't use all of our ESG funds because we don't find enough recipients who we think adequately meet those kind of legalistic requirements? Like, what happens to that nice pot of federal money, which we can use only in this specific way for homelessness, et cetera? What happens to it if after, like, what's the timeline look like? Do we hand the money back, et cetera?
We have a contract, the city has a contract with HUD for those funds. If it doesn't spend those dollars by the end of the contract, then the money gets returned to the federal government.
Okay.
There is a wide variety of uses for that money, and my department is looking at how we can reprogram those funds, because the county is offering a program, or the county has dollars through the Department of Treasury with looser restrictions than HUD's dollars, and greater benefits. I believe they go up to 15 months. They can pay for up to 15 months. Our program only goes up to 3 months because our money's through HUD and the restrictions are tighter. So we are looking at having to reprogram that money anyway, because with the county dollars that are out there for rent relief, it's unlikely that the money we've allocated through the ESG dollars are going to be used. So we're looking at how we can spend, other ways we can spend that money. There's a process that my department has to go through in order to do that, to get HUD's approval.
Okay, so, all right, that answers 2 questions. So one, when you say you reprogram it, the process involves going back to the federal government and saying, we didn't manage to spend it all in this way. Is it okay with you if we spend some of it in this way instead?
Correct. And there's a legal notice, so there's public comment. We have to offer an opportunity for the public to review and comment on how we would propose to reprogram those dollars.
So, and what you're looking at is folding the money in with some county money, which No, you just said something about the county has money
The
to
county
lose
has
a
a different
restriction.
program.
Okay,
The county has dollars through the Department of Treasury.
Right.
And is offering a rent relief program as well, with longer benefit periods.
right. And so you're going to,
Therefore, it's unlikely that anybody would be applying for our dollars.
okay, all
They'd
right.
instead be applying for the county dollars.
So what are you going to suggest to HUD in terms of how you want to reprogram these funds?
We're thinking about that now. I don't have an answer for you on that one.
Okay. Can I ask you again in 2 weeks? Sure. Thanks.
I don't know that the answer's gonna be any different.
Right, right, okay, good enough. All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Yeah, yes, I have a question for Commissioner Thomas. I appreciate you coming here. I got a couple questions. So it's regarding 1323 Rucker Street, okay? And the letter that just came out, and I remember all of us here when it came down to zoning, we were all concerned in that neighborhood because it was a lot of commercial property, and the new zoning was gonna hurt the resale value of that property, okay? My question is here with this 6,000 square feet, that's my first question, okay? How do we, and I'm not saying it's not in here and we need to fix it and it will be fixed, but the 6,000 square feet, when you talk about these retail stores, okay? So if it's under 6,000 square feet, in this legislation that we have here, it had to go in front of the zoning board to get a permit, am I correct?
No.
So any store, because it was zoned urban economic,
Urban mixed use.
urban mixed use,
Is what this council asked that it be rezoned, that area be rezoned to.
to
which is not
protect,
what we had
to protect the
We
people.
returned it back to
Which
the
is not what we had
original.
suggested.
The original was,
Wait.
I'm just making it clear.
I'm just
that's not what we
saying, I'm
suggested.
saying the original zoning,
Was community commercial.
correct, which had auto shop in there, we had other buildings that were in that zone, who our constituents came to us and complained, so we just changed it back to the original zoning. I just want you to know that.
Right, okay, so we're not, this is where I'm a little bit confused, and I'm gonna ask you a few questions here, because I did some research on it. So you're saying by putting it that way that we did that, any store, I'm under the impression, because it was over 6,000 square feet, this property, they did not have to get any permit at all. Because they're saying it is a grocery store, not a convenience store.
Can I answer that? The permit that you're talking about, they still have to get a certificate of operation,
Do they have that?
which they will get at the end of their building permit, right? That it's safe to operate because of the building that you get.
Okay.
That's all that says.
Okay.
Right? The other type of permit
It's a special use permit,
that
right?
you're talking about would be required if it's what we call neighborhood retail, which is traditionally what you put a convenience store in. That's under 6,000 square feet, and there's a bunch of other things that meet the definition. They have to sell food. That's a neighborhood retail store.
Which, okay.
This
But
is
that was permitted as well.
right. That would have been permitted. I would have had to issue that permit. You guys.
But that's my whole point.
Right.
That's my whole point. If you had to issue the permit, it
Right.
would have came through me, it would have came to the planning board, or,
No.
or the,
No.
where would it have came?
Me.
It was
Nothing.
permitted. Stores under,
6,000.
what we suggested was neighborhood mixed use. That allowed neighborhood retail without getting any permits. The council asked that it be changed from neighborhood mixed use to urban mixed use. That allowed both the stores under 6,000 and the stores over 6,000 without having to go through the planning board or zoning board, without any special use permit.
Okay,
So you wouldn't have been notified. They're expressly permitted.
okay. So how do you eliminate that? Because there should, these stores should have to go in front of a planning board or a zoning board, so it's out to the public, so the public knows what to do. You sat right here, Brian, and when my whole time, what was my biggest argument about the
Notifying the
zoning?
public,
Notifying the public.
which
So-
we did.
And you did, okay, but when a store or anything like that comes in a neighborhood, the public should be aware of it. And that's what I'm trying to say. And then, I mean, I'm reading this from this letter from the mayor here, basically saying that, okay, the council changed this, and anything over 6,000 square feet, you didn't have to have it. And then you're telling me this property is 6,000 square feet, but when I'm looking at it, and I know, Marcus, we talked about it, and I still don't understand it, you're showing two properties, one at 5,400 square feet and one at 1,200 square feet. I look at the electrical permit, okay, it says 2 stores, okay? So, I mean, I'm kind of confused by the whole thing. All I'm saying is, my constituents need to know when a store, the way I look at it, or I need to know. I want to be able to go and let people know that something's going on in their neighborhood. I feel like I let them people down on Rutgers Street, and that's how I'm feeling. When I get a call on Thursday afternoon from a constituent and says, there's a grocery store going in my area, and I don't have a clue what they're talking about, and I try to make a couple phone calls, and I know everybody's busy, and I know nobody can get back to you right away, I feel like I didn't do my job. I mean, that's where I'm coming from. I'm gonna work with the judge, and we're gonna do some different language in here where permits need to be, to be exposed. People need to get a permit.
Well, with all due respect, Councilman, when it was suggested that this be changed to urban mixed use, I warned the council. I said
We never talked about stores, Ryan.
I said that's going to allow for larger development. I definitely did. And I'll go back to the YouTube video if I have to, but I'm sure that I did.
Well, larger
It really is
development.
not that, it's the same size as the building, am I right?
Larger
That was there?
development.
It's not larger.
Yeah.
The building is still there.
I don't have a
structure's still
problem
there.
with the development. You never mentioned retail stores.
There's actually two structures.
But he's now allowed to, under urban mixed use, he's now allowed to take up the entire building for retail sales.
Let me ask you one
That's
other
fine.
question.
The building's there. We're okay with that.
Yeah, I got just one more question. So I got these two things here. Now, that building was M&M Cleaners for how many years? 50, 60, 70 years? How many hazardous materials have been through that building? Has anybody checked that out? Has anybody checked? We're going to put a grocery store, and this is my other problem.
That doesn't fall under the authority of the city.
Okay, so here's my other problem. So now, if it's a convenience store,
Give them a permit, knowing that that was something like that? That there was all kinds of chemicals being used? in
We
that
don't know
place?
that, that's the EPA.
Have they gone through there?
I
Has
don't-
the city requested an EPA, go to EPA go in there and check
I
it out
didn't.
for public safety?
Because it could come back and haunt us, right? That we give them a permit to
C
do
of O,
that?
yeah, but they didn't give them the C of O yet, so.
Can I?
so wait, one second, Celeste, and
Councilman
I just want to
Williamson has
get,
the
so
floor.
my other question is on the whole thing with the 6,000 square feet and under that. Explain this to me. To me, and you guys tell me if I'm wrong, if you get a property that's under 6,000 square feet, that's one thing. But if it's over 6,000 square feet, you don't need to get a permit? To me, the bigger the building is, the more you should get a permit. And I'm just asking, this is your business.
I'm not
You
sure
know-
what permit you're replying to.
And a special use permit.
The issue seems like.
No, the zoning allows, expressly permits.
Okay, so
General
with that
retail,
zoning,
which is
that,
over 6,000 square feet, and
Okay.
neighborhood retail, which is under 6,000 square feet. It was all part of what this body approved.
we didn't approve that like that. We
It's
changed
all in the use
something.
table.
Oh.
You tie the use table
Okay.
back to the uses. When you change the use,
Listen, we were here, and every one of us here will tell you, we were here for the people that were gonna lose value of their property. That's all we tried to do.
I understand. but
And
when you
that's
do
all
so-
we tried to
But when
do.
you take certain steps, you've got to understand that there's unintended consequences, and you've got to take those into consideration as a legislator. And you didn't.
Councilman Williamson, you have
I
the
don't
floor.
think it's me. I think there was 9 of us
Well,
that
that
did.
building sat vacant for how many years?
Right.
3, 5, 10 years maybe?
Right.
So finally, we're putting it to good use.
Well, I think the
But what the
neighborhood-
council
I think the
person
neighborhood
is
would take
saying
issue
is,
with whether or
you
not it's a
should be
good use.
notified what's going on in his neighborhood somehow, some way. He should be notified of if a grocery store is gonna be moving in, a shopping center is gonna be moving, at least let him know. So the
They don't have to
constituents
by
are
law.
calling him, saying, what's going on there? And he doesn't have an answer. And there should be some checks and balances to inform the council of what's going on. So by putting it in the planning board or the zoning board, when you have your meetings, and we check them when you send the email, what's going on, he checks every one. This way he'll know that something's going down in his district, and he could inquire about it, and maybe have a public hearing on it.
Well, I don't
and
have
things of
to do
nature,
that. The
but-
people will see it and would come if they have a problem.
Right, I'm just saying, at least you would know, you would be informed, but nobody even knew.
As a council member, I think we all agree with that statement. We should all be informed of what's going on in our districts. Councilman Williamson, you have the floor next.
Yeah, I mean, Beatrice already touched on it, but that was gonna be my question about what was there prior, now you're gonna put a grocery store in, and that's the concern I have, because there is a lot of chemicals that have been used in that property. It's probably in the concrete, it's probably in this, it's probably in that, and I think it might come back and haunt. It might come back and haunt the city, because we gave a permit for it. And if people start getting sick, or whatever the case may be, but that needs to be checked, because that's it was like a gas station. Didn't that 307 have the same problem? That Italian restaurant down there, there was a gas station prior, before that 307 was there. They couldn't do food there because it was a
Contaminated area.
and they had to shut it down, and they had to clean up all the soil. And 5 years later, they reopened they sold it after they cleaned it.
But that's on the business owner and the property owner. That doesn't fall under the authority of the city. Never has.
Yeah, but we gave them a permit for a convenience.
We did not give them a
serving food
permit.
out of there.
We didn't give
We
them a
don't,
permit.
we don't have
Yeah,
staff
you
to go
did.
through and check every
They
building
didn't
and
have
see
to have a
if
permit.
there's environmental issues that
Right.
the property owner or the business owner has to take into consideration.
But,
That's part of the due diligence that the property owner has to take on and the
But it's
business
our
owner.
due diligence as a city. to
No, but
make
if we
sure our-
took on that liability, think about what you're saying, okay? Somebody wants to open a store in a place where there already was a store. Might have been a store of a different kind. Already was a store. Now they want to open a store, right? Now we're going to take on the responsibility of saying whether it's environmentally safe underneath that building. So if they find out it's not, we said it was.
We know the history of this building.
And so we're going to make every store owner do.
Well,
Which histories are you?
we know this building was used chemicals for dry cleaning.
But there's buildings that use chemicals for everything.
Yeah, but I'm talking older chemicals.
So why would
A lot
we
of stuff
take
is not
on?
OSHA.
Let's say we forget one. We didn't know a chemical was there. Now we're taking on the responsibility for this building, but for that building we don't. But since we did it for this building and we didn't know those chemicals were there, are we more responsible? Why are we even getting into that realm? We don't test the environment.
If we permit it, we approve it though, right?
Can I?
No.
Can I have
No,
the
no,
floor?
no, I'm saying if we
Can I have the
permit it
floor?
and approve it, then-
Can I have the
Councilperson
floor?
Friend, you have the floor.
I just want to make something really, we didn't permit it. We didn't permit it because it is expressly allowed by the zoning ordinance. This is just kind of like a semantic thing. We have to stop saying we gave them a permit to do it. We didn't give them a permit to do it. They don't need a permit to do it. It's expressly allowed by the zoning. Now, so we can argue about whether we should have zoned it that way, whether we were right, whether we paid enough attention to all of the, as the commissioner says, the unintended consequences. They didn't get a permit from the city. They don't need one. So I just want to make that really clear. But first of all, then I'd like to pivot a little bit. I suggested when we were debating the neighborhood convenience store special permit, I said I wanted to amend it that it would require a resolution of the council. And my thinking there was exactly what Mr. Beatrice has expressed, exactly what Mr. Williamson has expressed, exactly what Ms. McNeil has expressed, which is that the council ought to have its eyeballs on what's going into these neighborhoods, because in the end, these neighborhoods are what we have the most intimate, best knowledge of. I would like us to revisit the idea that we amend the zoning ordinance to require, and we'd have to talk about how large the scope of this would be, but to require resolutions from the council, which just requires 5 of us, that there would be a resolution from the council in order to allow, I'm not going to use the word permit, but in order to allow certain kinds of businesses to operate in neighborhoods. I just think we need to revisit this.
I don't think that it needs to, I don't think it needs to go back in front of the council. What I think it needs to do is have a permit issued, so it has to go in front of the planning board, okay? So once it goes in front of the planning board, it's public knowledge. So the people in that area knows that there may be something going there. And we know. The way I came here with you for Brightwater Farms to ask for a public hearing. We don't need to decide what goes there. This man who bought this building, I met with Marcus and him, he seems like a very nice man. He put a ton of money into the building. What I'm trying to say is the people in that area shouldn't have known. And if a permit had to be issued, a special use permit had to be issued, it's public knowledge. Nobody could say anything that a store's going there, I didn't know about it. Well, it was public knowledge. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to hold out any commerce. I'm not trying to do any of that. All I'm trying to say is I want the people in my area to know what's going on, and I want to represent them, and I felt I failed those people. That's what I'm trying to say.
Councilperson Miola, you have the floor.
The Culver Avenue, when we had Stewart's, when they bought, they bought the property and stuff, and that was part of the deal, they had to clean it up before they could put the store there. True?
It wasn't us that told them. It's the EPA.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So did we have to give them a permit to put the Stewart's there?
There's several permits.
This is Kate Hartnett. Can I speak a little bit?
Yeah.
Please.
Yes.
About time, Ms. Hartnett.
So, I think there's a lot of talk about permits and everything going on. So generally, and correct me if I'm wrong, Marcus, but if you're making any sort of improvements or renovations to a building that cost over $500, you need a building permit.
It's $1,000.
What's how much, $1,000?
Yes.
Okay, but if you're not changing the site layout, if you're not making exterior changes, the site planning process doesn't really come into play. Am I correct about that, Brian?
I think he's putting the windows in there, isn't he?
He's done everything there.
No, he is, because he's putting money into it. If he bought the store ready-made and moved in another store, he would never come in front of us.
He's not constructing anything new, he's just constructing the existing building, right?
Right.
Certain uses, under the new zoning ordinance, certain uses in certain districts require site plan approval. Some require special permit use. This was expressly permitted. It didn't require any sort of approval.
So there's no discretionary approvals necessary.
Correct.
No. Right.
So so we gotta remember that this, and this is just me speaking from kind of a practical perspective. If you start to go down this road where the planning board is going to have to approve every single project in the city, because it will get that way eventually, nothing will be done. The planning board will be overwhelmed. And the code is very carefully designed so that the projects that really need planning board review are the ones that will receive planning board review. And zoning is meant to allow, without planning board review, those types of uses that are in harmony with the way the zoning code is written, which is, hold on a second.
6,000 feet.
Which
6,000 square feet.
this use in this neighborhood was deemed to be harmony with the neighborhood. I also have to say that I would just remind the board, and we had this conversation when the convenience store law was being considered, the new one, which created a licensing regime, that it would be inappropriate and illegal for the common council to arrogate to itself the power to approve or deny a permit. That's an executive function that's only within the province of the executive branch of the government, and I do not recommend that the common council considers taking out that responsibility. And a non-legal note, that would also, really, if you think about it, put every single one of you at various times in untenable political positions. So I know that it's hard when things happen and constituents are taken by surprise and you're picking up the pieces and trying to make sense of it, but it's not a good idea, I would say, to make these types of generalizations about how a code needs to change based on one surprising situation. I'm done. Thank you.
Councilman
I had a
Miola has the
question
floor
after
next.
Frank, I have a question.
No, after the floor, Councilman Moody has it, and then you.
Okay.
And then we have to get started with our regular scheduled meeting.
The advertising of the building, when the building was advertised, the total buildings for both of them together were about 67,000 square feet. So if it's impossible to have 6,000 square feet of gross retail in that property. It's impossible. So it's two separate buildings. I don't know if the measurements were improper. I don't know what's going on with that. Well, let's take that in consideration because I do believe that it's due for a special use permit because if it's a neighborhood store, it's in the proximity of 2,000 linear feet of another store, okay, which is on Bleecker Street.
But that doesn't matter.
That's outside, it's outside our new zoning law, which I agree with you. Listen, on the surface, you're right, but this is an outside law. This is a law that the council made back in 2009.
It was an amendment to the zoning ordinance, which you rescinded in your ordinance passed on February 3rd.
Well, according to
It
our
clearly
clerk,
says that.
according to our clerk, there's no rescinding in there. There's no,
It
there's,
clearly says that.
Did-
In
did
the
you-
email you sent me that has a copy of the ordinance that was signed by the city clerk.
we both
It clearly
looked at it.
says, ordinance number 303 of 1994, and all amendments hereto are hereby rescinded. It says it right there.
It does.
It couldn't be any more clear.
Well, maybe it's clear to you, but it's not clear to my colleagues who voted on it and myself. According to myself and what I voted on amending section 229 to section number 517. I did not vote on amending the section that I'm speaking about. If you feel that way, that's fine. Maybe you interpret it that way, but myself and my colleagues did not interpret that way. Okay, so I like to start by enforcing the existing laws that's in our books. Okay, that the city of Utica has to use a special use permit. Okay, which that law is still there. It's section 605. Maybe you believe it's still there. To me, I believe it's still there, and my colleagues believe it's still there because we did not amend that in your new zoning law. We did not. Now, on the surface, Brian, you're absolutely correct. Is this business justified to put there with the zoning? Yes, but there's another caveat to the zoning. The councils, because the councils separately, this is years ago, they didn't want so many neighborhood stores together. That's why the linear foot law is in there.
Yes,
2,000
by
linear foot.
amending ordinance number 303 of 1994, which was rescinded on February 3rd by this body.
So that law was rescinded February 3rd? No, we did not vote on it. I don't know if you guys voted on it, but I didn't. All right?
If you have the resolution, I'd be glad to point it out to you.
Clerk, can you get the resolution out for that, please? And we'll go over it, because I'm pretty sure myself and my colleagues did not vote on it, amending that section, because your section stops at 229-517. It doesn't go to 229-605. And it never stated in there to remove 229-605. Did it, Brian? Did it state in there clearly to rescind it? Did it state in there?
Rescinded ordinance
Did it
number
say to
303 of 1994 and all amendments here too.
Brian, that could be various. You could pick any amendment you want in our charter to do that, okay? That's copacetic to whatever.
No, ordinance
Brian.
number 303 of 1994.
I don't agree. I don't agree.
The city updated its
So
zoning
you're
ordinance.
trying to tell us what we voted on, okay? That we know it's still in there, okay? That these people need to come to constraints. All we're asking for in this is to have a little bit of constraints for the neighbors in that area.
I do have it up here.
Okay.
And it does in fact say, and this was read into the record, ordained that ordinance number 313 of 1994 and all amendments thereto are hereby rescinded, annulled, and superseded by this ordinance.
That's 2094, though.
No, this is what we passed February 3rd.
Can the judge weigh in on, does that include the resolution that Brian is talking about?
Well, it's right there. We voted on it.
No.
No, I'm not trying to be condescending. I'm just saying we did. We
But I want
did.
the
We
judge
did.
to say that would include that. Okay.
So it's included.
Thank
So
you, Judge.
605 is not there anymore. Is that what everybody's saying to me?
Correct.
Okay, colleagues, would you like to reintroduce 605? Because I'll tell you what, I don't want neighborhood stores in that proximity. Will my colleagues agree with that?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, then. Judge, would you please write up 605 and please reintroduce it to the chambers as soon as possible? We'd like to put that into motion.
I can just tell you though, that when this was put into place, businesses that wanted to get around this applied for an area variance through the zoning board and generally got it.
That's fine, as long as there's a
did it
system of
follow?
checks
So
and
it's not
balances.
addressing what you're
But then it would at least.
you're not fixing anything.
Yeah, but the issue I have from a code standpoint in enforcing that, right?
You
When
have-
I'm issuing one of these licenses, when I'm doing an estate review, you gotta define it well then. Because I'm still looking at this as something under 5,000 square feet if it's neighborhood retail. So now it's 6,000 square feet, I wouldn't have made them get one anyway. So you have to tell me what can't be there. You can't just say three words.
We need to get rid of the square footage.
Well, but if you get rid of the square footage, right?
Then you
is-
open up
then is
to
every-
a whole ton of other businesses.
Is every store in a shopping center prohibited from being next to the other one? Right? I mean, this is
Can
what
I
I'm
ask
saying.
a question?
You have to define what you're talking about. Because it's hard for me to enforce a law When you guys just say, I don't want this kind of store near this kind of store, and it's not defined.
Go on, I'm sorry.
I think it's two conversations happening. It started out, I think this is the real conversation that is happening. I think it started out as the question about notifying. The community needs to be notified. So I want to ask my colleagues, is the real issue not the notification that the store is going in, but the types of businesses that are going in particular the drug? Like, is it that we want the community notified, or we want the power to decide what goes in these sorts of areas?
I don't think it's not a power thing with me at all. Here's my issue over there. They're saying this guy is a grocery store, okay, versus a convenience store, where it's basically, it's a large convenience store. You were right with me. We gave the guy ideas on what he should have in front and what he's not. But he's selling every single thing that a convenience store is selling.
But it's neither of those things, because the definitions in our
Thank
code
you.
are
Retail.
general retail and
Right.
neighborhood retail.
Right.
This one is general retail.
Right, because
The typical, what you would typically call a convenience store is neighborhood retail,
right.
right?
So
And we have no role in the process. We have no role in the
No,
process.
You did have a role in the process. You adopted the zoning.
No, I'm talking
It is
about
this
after-
body that had the ultimate role.
I'm talking about afterwards. If we go back to the permit in the special use, right? And thinking about Oneida Square, where they, exactly what you said,
Yes.
got a variance,
The
and we got
the
three.
zoning board gave the variance, and
Right.
that's why you've got so many in Oneida Square.
Right. But if we do that, which they're talking about, and that passes, then we still have no say directly in it. And the attorney said, Mrs. K. Hartnett, that we don't have the legal authority to decide what store goes where. So, hypothetically, even if we pass that law about the special permit use, they apply, they get a variance, we're still back here a year from now.
Yes.
Wait, one last question. So when we change this,
Change what?
When we change the zoning to urban mixed use for this,
Okay.
for this section.
All right.
If we did not change it, they could still open a convenience store there, is what you're saying.
Under 6,000 square feet, yes.
Right, and they could have very easily did it, because they would have just said, okay, it's 5,400 for here and 1,200 in the back.
Correct.
Right, right.
But it would have been smaller than what they're doing now.
Well, it does, again, at the property, I've visited the property. The gentleman has put a lot of time, money, and if he's doing everything right, it may be an asset to the neighborhood, okay? But for you guys, for them to come, you keep saying that it was this way, we changed it, so now they can put a store there. So the only difference is, they can put a 5,400 square foot store instead of a 6,000 foot square store, correct? Am I correct?
Yes, but that leads to something else though, because we issue a permit for neighborhood retail stores, and there's conditions that have to be met for that permit.
Okay.
So if they
Right.
were under 6,000 square feet, we could hold them to the conditions of that permit.
Okay.
Right now, there's no conditions to hold them.
Okay, so let me ask you this question, getting back to the 6,000 square foot thing.
Right.
Why can't you put the same conditions for a store over 6,000 square feet as a store that's under 54?
Because now you're bringing in a whole bunch of other stores, like Dollar Generals, Family Dollars, Price Chopper, Shenancheries.
Which we had
You're
to
bringing
argue
up in a
against
whole,
in the neighborhood.
which
So
has
what are you
a,
bringing in? Getting a special use permit, that's not a problem, is it?
there's an administrative burden
Well,
to that.
there's a problem because every single
It's
store.
a moneymaker for the city, doesn't it cost $250?
No, it's not. It costs $250. Believe me, the amount of time they spend on it is more than $250 worth. We originally suggested the permit be $500, and you guys put it down to $250, which doesn't cover my costs, right? For the stores that are already there. And now you're going to add a whole bunch more stores.
I would
all
say
across the
new
city.
locations.
We already do 1203 fire inspections on them, right? Now we have to do permit inspections on them, make them get a license, maintain that every 2 years, collect the money, pull the permit, evict them from the store if they don't get the money. And I'm gonna have to do that to Rite Aid, to Dollar General, to Price Chopper, to Walmart,
No,
to
not
every
if you,
store
not if
in
you
the
wrote
city.
legislation that said any new store, you wouldn't have to do it.
Huh?
Not if you wrote legislation that said any new store, you wouldn't have to do it.
Well, but the license that we have currently on the books is every 2 years.
Right, okay.
I don't have the I would need a department of 20 people.
There's no accountability
Yeah.
for the variance or the ZBA.
Say that again?
If there's nothing that we can do, if we don't agree with the number, with the variance, right?
Yes.
You're saying there's no recourse
There's nothing that
from
we
this
can do.
body if
Right.
the ZBA were to grant a variance?
Right.
Correct.
And so even if we said, that makes no sense, okay.
Councilman Lomatico, you have the floor.
Yeah, I just had one question. I was just reading the zoning legislation. It says, if you go down, it says, whereas by resolution dated July 15th, 2020, the Common Council of the City of Utica identified revisions to the zoning code as type 1 action pursuant to New York State Environmental Quality Review, identified itself as the lead agency. So the City of Utica is the lead agency when it comes to the environmentals in this building?
That's for the environmental review that pertains specifically and solely to the adoption of a new zoning ordinance.
So if a building was a dry cleaners and was using dangerous chemicals, and the
That's
city
something-
is aware of that, shouldn't they, part of their environmental review, take that into consideration?
That's on them. It's not part of the seeker. The seeker that's mentioned in that ordinance was specific to the council's taking action on the adoption of the ordinance. That required review under seeker. Your votes, yea or nay, required review and approval under the state's Environmental Quality Review Act. That's all that pertains to, not individual
Well,
developments.
it identifies you guys as the lead agency and began coordinating and review the process. So if you're the lead agency on the seeker here, environmentally, shouldn't you at least find out what was in that building before you give another
Councilman,
permit out?
The seeker is strictly related to the adoption. On February 3rd, that evening, your adoption, your vote, had to go through a seeker review.
Well,
That's
this
it.
is dated July 2020.
Well, it was started before, because we sent down the legislation months
Right.
prior to your actually adopting it.
Just think about what you're gonna make me do here.
No,
if,
no.
if we're in quality review, think about what you're gonna do. All seriousness, somebody buys a store.
And the liability you're opening the
wants to
city
open
to.
a new store. I'm gonna make them get environmentals. A
Well,
small business owner, somebody- or-
if it's a dry cleaner and they've been there for 60 years and they've been using dangerous chemicals,
But Jack,
I
how do I
would
know
think,
what was in the building?
what?
How do I know what in that building?
Well, you know what was in the building, it was a dry
No,
cleaners.
In that building, I know that was a dry
Raj,
cleaner, right?
so you're going on your knowledge base, not what you don't know.
Yeah, but then if
correct?
I omit something and I caught something there, then I'm more liable now
No,
than
no,
if I say, this is the subject
you're
of the
responsible
EPA.
for things that you know,
There
not
is
for
an
things that you don't
environmental
know.
regulatory agency that is in place to regulate potential environmental hazards that's run by the federal government of the United States of America.
Well, don't you
And
think
to-
they
to-
should have
to
been in
get
there before
us
this
in-
building was put up for sale or prior to it was
To
being
get us
sold?
involved in that is an incredible undertaking.
Well, they had that, okay, they had that gas station over there on Oneida Street.
Right.
It was seeping gas for years.
Yes.
The people got sick. Do we gotta wait for the people to get sick in that area there before we take action?
The EPA forced the mitigation of that. That's the agency. You're trying to create another agency over an agency.
No, what I'm trying to do is that we know that there was a building there that had hazardous chemicals in it, and we're just saying, go ahead and sell it to this guy. We don't give a damn, and whatever happens there is fine. I just,
No, we're saying it's not in our
Philosoph-
purview. It's not what we do.
well, I think maybe we should.
not what
at
any
least-
city does.
Anytime you sell something that where you know there was hazardous waste, I think that part of our process would be, that's okay.
You'd never have a
It was
say,
in the
you'd never sell a piece of property in the city of Utica ever again.
I don't know about
You never would.
My house
Council
has
President,
asbestos.
you
Yeah.
have the floor.
All right, so, I have the only reason I requested the floor is we're over time. At this time, if the council during the main meeting would like to ask for either a committee meeting amongst yourselves to discuss this further, because it sounds like it's needed, I think that would be appropriate. But at this time, I'm going to request the body to adjourn the pre-meeting conference so that we can move on to the main scheduled meeting at 7 p.m. Okay, I will
adjourned.
call the meeting to order in 2 minutes, just so everyone can get some water, take a bio break, and I'm going to call the meeting to order. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, you guys ready? All right. It is June 2nd, right? June 2nd? Feels like it might be the 3rd by now. It's June 2nd, 2021. City of Utica Common Council. This meeting is now called to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
McNeil, Burmaster, Friend, Miola, Moody, Beatrice, Williamson, Lemetico, DeBrango, Galimi, all present.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence for the deceased members of the council. All right, first order of business this evening are the minutes of the previous meeting.
I would like to make a motion to waive the reading of the minutes, please, Mr. President.
We have a second from Williamson. Any opposed? Okay, they are in E-Code 360 for any of the public to review. The council's accepted the minutes of the previous meeting. We have no public hearings this evening, so the public hearing is now closed. We have no common council guests. Yeah, what are you doing? So the next order of business will be public comment period. We do have one speaker signed up to speak. Ron Vincent, please come forward. Have you read the rules designated for public comment period?
Yes, I have.
You may speak. Thank you.
My name is Ron Vincent. I'm here to speak tonight about a blue card that was mailed out to every resident in the city of Utica this past winter, talking about the green waste pickup and everything with a very detailed schedule. One thing about the city of Utica, they take very, very good care of us as far as picking up green waste, our leaves and limbs and things. All the towns and villages that surround us, they don't have that. Not as well as Utica does. The only problem I have with it, it gives a last date. In North Utica, the last date for pickup was the 24th of May. Everybody should have had everything out, ready to be picked up, and after that point, everything has to go in a bucket. Well, it's a week and a half later. Today is Wednesday. North Utica gets picked up on a Monday. I was watching the guys pick up green waste today, a week and a half after the closing date, and they're only about halfway through North Utica. Well, they would have been all the way through North Utica, but they were pulled at noon because they had to go do a sweep today instead. But anybody that's putting green waste out after that closing date, I think there should be a law. The way it's written on that blue piece of paper, it looks like a law that you could be fined by the codes department for putting out green waste and just leaving it in the road. For the last years, they always went around about 2 weeks afterwards doing it as a kindness. But there's a law on that blue piece of paper that if you keep putting it out, you should be fined. I think they ought to give a piece of that blue paper to all the codes enforcers, and after that date, send them around, riding around in their vehicles. Anybody's got green waste, put a fine ticket on their house. Give them a couple of days. If you don't put that in a bucket, we're coming back and we're going to charge you $50 or $100 or whatever the fine could be. The city sent out those blue cards to every home in the city of Utica at a cost, from what I learned today, it was about 30 cents per card. That's a lot of money. But we take our tax dollars to notify the people, to let them know it's going to happen. And then they turn around and they don't abide by it. Next week, you drive through North Utica or any other part of the city of Utica, there's still going to be green waste piles in the road, and our DPW's got to go out when they could be doing other things, picking up this green waste, and these people get away scot-free. So if I'm driving down the street someday and I see a sign on the side of the road that says no parking this side, can I park there for a couple of weeks and not worry about getting a fine? No, I can't. So why should this be any different? Let's start enforcing the laws that we have. Let not the homeowner, the property owner, but whoever's living there, if they're not the homeowner, let them be responsible for paying this fine. And then on Wednesdays, when we have our sweeps, instead of going around picking up the trash that everybody's leaving in the streets, go around to each home and issue them a ticket. And tell them, say, it's your yard. You clean it up. There's no reason we have to pull the DPW away from doing other jobs, and our fire department and our policemen and all the people that work in City Hall. Let them write fines for these people and let them pay it. I'd gladly pay it if I knew I was doing something wrong. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's the final speaker this evening. So public comment period is now closed. Communications from the mayor. We do have a letter to the council from the mayor this evening, which I'll read. Mayor's message to the council, June 2nd, 2021. Referenced below are some updates for the common council. Effective yesterday, City Hall was open to the public with the observance of standard public health guidelines. Last week, the city announced a partnership with Cornerstone Community Church and its pastor, Mike Ballman, in support of the church's social enterprise program. This program is designed to help individuals in our community who are homeless by providing them with opportunities to assist city crews in cleaning public areas, including city parks. As we approach the 4th of July, the city is seeking public cooperation in combating illegal fireworks. Fireworks are illegal in the city, and utilizing firework-related products is not safe and negatively impacts the quality of life of our residents. Non-containerized green waste pickup will be extended to June 12th. After June 12th, all green waste must be containerized. The administration will be sending out a public notice later this week. Lastly, there have been questions regarding a proposed retail establishment at 1323 Rucker Street. Economic Development Commissioner Brian Thomas and Codes Commissioner Marquez Phillips have been asked to look into the matter. For the council's review and reference, enclosed with this message is a memo they crafted that provides specific details regarding this situation. That ends the mayor's message to the council this evening. The memorandum was included and, of course, discussed in the pre-meeting conference. Reports from the city officers. Chief Ingersoll.
No report tonight.
Thank you very much. Deputy Chief Noonan.
Mr. President, this past Monday, Memorial Day, we had a very unfortunate incident in which a 16-year-old female was shot multiple times in the chest. I just wanted to commend our officers along with UFD paramedics. Our officers arrived first on scene and they administered first aid and applied chest bandages to 2 of the 3 wounds. Paramedics subsequently arrived, and from what we're told at the hospital, their actions saved the girl's life. So I just wanted to publicly recognize Officer Chris Mannion and Officer Tyler Mowers for their first aid efforts.
Thank you very much. Anything else this evening?
That's it.
Thank you. Commissioner Thomas.
Yeah, I'm good.
Thank you.
It's up for public debate, I guess.
You know, go ahead.
We might have a couple more for you.
Commissioner Phillips, any reports? And I have a question that I want to direct from the public comment to you regarding the potential ticketing of people who are not containerizing waste after the green waste pickup that's open ends. Is
Please.
that, can you comment on it?
Yeah, sure. Last year, we billed about, after you guys passed the legislation, we ended up billing, I don't, somewhere in the mid-teens, like $15,000 or something, to people that were putting out green waste illegally. Could have been a lot more. But it being the first year of that law being passed, there was some leniency to first-time offenders, people didn't know. I would like to say publicly in front of the council that no such leniency will be given this year.
And you need more staff.
You can give me more staff if you want, but what happens is, the way that we do this is when DPW goes by that street, or when solid waste goes by that street, or when a codes officer goes by the street, they all document it, go to the same place, and then we go enforce it. We'll give you a notice, say you got 48 hours to remove it. If you don't remove it in that 48 hours, we'll issue what's called an abatement, meaning DPW will pick it up, but they're gonna charge you for the labor. And we got a lot of distraught homeowners last year, but they should all know better this year. And we have to enforce this law because it costs us money in the long run if these things get caught up in drains and catch basins and things like that.
Okay, you good? Can I add something to that?
Sure.
Because I've used a service of the Solid Waste Authority multiple times when doing yard work. If you do have neighbors out there that do have quite a bit of stuff out in front of their house, midsummer, fall, etc., I'm not asking you to be a nosy neighbor, but before you report them to the codes department, it would be prudent to ask them if they've already arranged for a solid waste pickup. For example, I had to remove a couple trees that had fallen, etc. I chopped them up, put them out front. I called the Solid Waste Authority, in which case they came, assessed it, and I paid like $72 or whatever it was for them to remove that stuff. That is a service, and I'd like to remind people that outside of the containerized pickup, you can do that. And if you'd like a specific pickup because you're removing shrubs, doing major yard work, you can do open green waste pickup. It's just not negotiated through the city. You call the Solid Waste Authority to have that arranged. All right, so the last report this evening will be Attorney Hartnett. Oh, sorry.
Can that be included in that blue thing that y'all send out to everybody?
Oh, I guess that's directed to you in the notification.
Well, DPW sends it out, or Parks sends it out. We couldn't, I don't know if we can include it because it's a separate agency, but they contract with us, so I don't see why not. But that would be a question
for the next round of it going out, maybe. Okay. All right, so the final report this evening is Attorney Hartnett, who's been at many meetings, answering many questions, and I'm introducing her this way because this will be her final meeting with the Common Council and her final meeting, over the next couple weeks. She will be parting ways with the city, and I'd like to wish her her best and give her the last floor to report for the Corporation Council.
That was very kind of you, President Clooney. I appreciate it. I have no report from the Corporation Council's office, but I would just like to state that I really enjoyed working with the Common Council, and I loved my time at the City of Utica, and I thank you so much for everything I learned here, and hopefully I will still occasionally tune in to the Common Council meetings for the City of Utica. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. That concludes the reports from the city officers, unless Commissioner Short is on. I don't see the list. Going once. All right, reports from the city officers. Do we have any cash reports, miscellaneous communications, etc.?
No communications tonight.
All right, thank you very much. Petitions, remonstrances, appeals, and legislation from the floor. First District, Council Member and Majority Leader Maria McNeely, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. The only thing I have tonight is I'd like to reiterate, Catherine, you will be missed terribly. The city is definitely at a loss. So thank you for everything you've done, and we look forward to seeing what you do in the future, because I'm sure you'll succeed in whatever you do. So, thank you.
Thank you. Second District, Councilman Burmaster, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a proposed ordinance number 4 submitted by Deputy Chief Newman. It's handicap parking locations ordained at Section 2-16378, Schedule W. Handicap parking location is amended to include the following: Maple Street, 1301, Maple Street, 30 feet west of Martin Street intersection. Be it further ordained that the proper signage be erected when necessary. I'd like to make the motion.
You have a second? Second from Friend, your votes.
9 E's adopted.
Thank you, Mr. President. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Third District, Councilperson Friend, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to say that happy Pride Month to everybody in the city of Utica. To all our LGBTQ citizens and residents in Utica, happy Pride Month. We love you. We see you. We hope you don't move away. We wish you would open a better gay bar. Happy Pride Month, everybody. And I also really wish that the city of Utica would fly a pride flag. Rome, Utica, raised a pride flag yesterday, which was really exciting. Although they raised it they accidentally flew it upside down, which makes me think that all the gay people in Rome might be in distress, which is possible. So, but I think that today they corrected that. So I wish that we would fly a pride flag here at City Hall, and maybe that is something which we could work on in the future. So with that, I would like to introduce resolution number 3, which is a resolution to create the Utica Common Council Facebook page. Whereas in 2021, many people get their news and public information from social media, and the use of traditional print media has declined dramatically. And whereas in the spirit of open meetings law, the public should be notified of all public meetings and provided with minutes, agendas, pending legislation, etc., in advance of said meetings. And whereas the Utica Common Council seeks to engage the public as much as possible, therefore be it resolved that the Utica Common Council does hereby establish a Facebook page that shall be subject to the following. 1, the Facebook page shall be solely and exclusively administered by the clerk and deputy clerk. No person other than the 2 clerks shall have the authority to post on or edit the Facebook page. 2, the Facebook page shall be used solely and exclusively to communicate to the public the official business of the council and of the city, including and limited to the following: days and times of regular meetings, committee meetings and special meetings, links to agendas, legislation, and minutes as found on eCode 360, various rules of the Common Council, official announcements from the city, such as snow emergencies, and other announcements as made by the mayor and or Utica Police Department and Utica Fire Department, and live streams of any council meetings that are also carried live on YouTube. 3, the About section of the page shall read as follows. The Utica Common Council is the legislative branch of the city government of Utica, New York. This is the official Facebook page for the city of Utica Common Council. The About section shall also list the URL address for the Department of Legislation of the City of Utica, as well as the phone number, the email address, and the YouTube channel of the City of Utica. 4, the configuration of automated responses for instant reply will be as follows. This is an automated response. If your message is directed to the city clerk or the entire Common Council, please email cityclerk@cityofutica.com. If your message is for a particular council member, please see the district's map subpage and contact info subpage to reach out to them directly. 5, the cover photo of the page shall be at the discretion of the city clerk. 6, the presence and use of this Facebook page by the Utica Common Council shall not be construed as a substitute for and maintaining of a website or YouTube channel where all information listed above shall also be posted and where meetings shall be live streamed respectively. 7, the public shall not be allowed to comment on posts. So I would like to move that resolution.
No, second.
And I'm wondering if we're going to go full council on this. Terrific. There we go.
Thank you.
9 yeas adopted.
Yay, thank you, everybody. And that's all I have this evening.
All right, 4th District, President Pro Tem Frank Mioli, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to move resolution number 1, amending the section 2-286 of the Utica City Code, financial disclosures, whereas Article 1B in New York Public Officers Law 2-86 of Utica City Code requires certain City of Utica officials annually to file statements of financial disclosures with the City of Utica Board of Ethics, and whereas the appendix, section 2-286 of City Utica Code, sets forth those officers and employees of the City of Utica who are required to file annual statements of the financial disclosure. And whereas the Harbor Point Land Development Corporation, as a public corporation sponsored by the City of Utica, needs to be added to Appendix A. Now therefore be it resolved, the Common Council does hereby amend Appendix A-2-286 of City Utica Code And is followed, of course, to add the Harbor Point Land Development Corporation Board on there.
Second it.
All right, your votes. I'm scrolling through the list. Public can find this. Councilman Miola iterated the amendment.
9 yeas adopted.
Thank you very much. Anything else?
I'm all set, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you. 5th District, Councilman Moody, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to first rescind resolution number 1 in the Public Safety Committee, which is the no parking at all times at the Eagle Street north side between Subin Street to a point 50 feet westwardly on Eagle Street.
That sits in committee? And you'd like to rescind that. Is there a second?
You don't need a vote if nobody sponsors
Oh,
it.
that's true. It's in committee, so it's dispensed?
Yes.
Okay.
And I would like to move to lay on the table a local law establishing Juneteenth as a public holiday in the city of Utica, New York.
Second?
Okay.
That's full council.
Yes. Yeah.
Let me just get the legislation on the page here. Sorry. There it is.
I don't have to read that, do I?
You don't. If you'd like to just
Summarize?
read the first whereas.
I'll read the first whereas.
Thank you. Thank you.
Whereas President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation effectively June 1st, 1863, and while many African Americans were free from slavery immediately thereafter, those in the state of Texas continued to be enslaved for an additional 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation. And whereas knowledge of the emancipation came to Texas 2 years later on June 19th, 1865, when Major General Gordon Granger and federal troops in Galveston, Texas, informed enslaved African Americans to their right to freedom at the end of the Civil War and the end of slavery. And whereas June 19th, 2021 marks the 156th anniversary of June 19th, and whereas Juneteenth is a day that honors the official declaration that slavery in the state of Texas would be forever abolished, and whereas June 19th is the day that celebrates the liberation for over 250,000 African Americans in the state of Texas, the last state in which the Emancipation Proclamation was enforced. And whereas this day is commemorated by various federal, state, local agencies and is embraced as a holiday with complete latitude of other holidays.
All right, we've got a second to lay it on the table. Anyone opposed? It's on the table.
Okay.
I will make I'm going to work with Councilman Jack LaMedico to see if we can get a committee meeting for urban economic development to move the MWBE ordinance.
Okay.
That's all, Mr. President.
Thank you. 6th District, Councilman Joe Beatrice.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I want to thank Commissioner Thomas and Codes Officer Marcus for coming here tonight. And I want to thank all the support I got from all you guys about the issue over on Rutgers Street. And I just want to say I am going to be looking into something to be sure that we can fix something on this so we don't run into these issues again. It bothered me very much. I take my area very personal. And I just, when something like this comes up, I know it was, it bothered me that I didn't know about it. And I realized that there was no, purposely not letting anybody know, but we just need to come up with a better program and be a little bit more transparent so everybody in the area, the business people, and the residents of the area are all on the same page. That's all I have tonight, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Councilman at Large and Minority Leader Mark Williamson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. After the last council meeting, I went down to, 2 days afterwards, went down to skate park, took pictures of everything. It was really impromptu, so I didn't have a chance to let anybody know. They called me, hey, we're down here. So I went down there, I took pictures. I talked to Dave Short. He's already called the company that installed the first one about 25 years ago or 20 years ago. And they're not getting back to him, so he's gonna go with another company and redo the whole thing down there. So, I mean, it probably won't happen this summer. It's gonna, hopefully it does by the end of summer. Somebody comes in there and fixes it. But yeah, there's a lot of liability issues in there. He's aware of it. And so he's gonna get it fixed.
Thank you.
All right.
All right.
And, Councilor Hartnett, are you there? She left. I know you told me not to say this, but Attorney Hartnett told me that was her favorite counselor for the last. I'm sorry, I had to say it, but I had to get that out there. So that's all I have.
Council at Large, Jack LaMedico, you have the floor.
I don't know what to say now.
Got two more pieces. If you want to get to it.
First of all, I'd like to thank the Utica Police Department, especially Officers Mannion and Power, for a great job they did. I hope they will be getting awards at the end of the year, like we had a couple weeks ago. They did a great job, and also the fire department personnel that were on the scene. You guys did a great job, and you saved a life. That's what the police and the fire department do. That's why they're so important to our citizens. Thank you again. Also, the Cornerstone Church and Pastor Bauman, I think that's a great community organization that they're going to put together. I guess they're going to be he's going to have some of the people there that are homeless work with the city, with the DPW. They're going to help with cleaning up and everything. So I think that's a great idea. Unfortunately, it doesn't clean up Oneida Square. Oneida Square has really turned into a real mess there. I could drive by there daily. I see people laying on the lawn. It's becoming a regular needle park. And I think it's coming to the citizens of this city that we push the administration to do something with that Oneida Street area. And I really would like to see some of this money that we're receiving, the $64 million that we're receiving, go towards that to try to fix that area up. It's an embarrassment to the city. There's people standing in the middle of the street, stoned, unable to walk. Today I saw people laying on the grass there, needles in front of them, the bags in front of them. This is not what Oneida Square should be. I would love to see the city do something to clean that area up, revitalize Oneida Square, because it shouldn't be the way it is now, and it puts a dark shadow on our city as a whole to have a place like that. And it's a busy street. It's right on Genesee Street. You know, we drive right through it, and everybody in the city goes through there when they go through the circle. It's terrible. I don't. There's many adjectives I could use on it, but I'll just say it's not good right now. We need to fix it. And Kate, on a better note, good luck. And you told me I was your favorite, so we're going to have to draw off on this one here. So,
Better make it 3 draws.
All right, and I have a couple things I have to move here. First, I'd like to move the announcement of dates for the July and August regular Common Council meeting. Be it resolved that the Common Council of the City of Utica does hereby schedule its regular July and August meeting for Wednesday, July 14th at 7 p.m. and Wednesday, August 11th, 2021 at 7 p.m. respectively, to be held in the Common Council chamber.
Second.
Your votes.
9 E's adopted.
And I got one more here. Let me look it up. So you're stealing from. This is my favorite one of the year because it has to do with wine. So here we go. I'd like to move the authorizing sale of wine and beer to the Ashley Lynn Winery. Whereas the sale of alcoholic beverages and possession of an open container containing alcoholic beverages is prohibited on Utica City streets, sidewalks, playgrounds, parks, and a right-of-way by the ordinance of the Common Council, except in certain instances where permission is granted by the Common Council. Now, therefore, be resolved that permission to sell beer and wine and exemption from the provision of Section 2-15-43, subdivision C-1-2 and 3 regarding open container of alcoholic beverages is granted to Ashley Lynn Winery. And the name of the event is Carnival Eats Utica. Dated events is June 10th from 4 to 8 p.m., Saturday, June 11th from 4 to 8 p.m., and Sunday, June 12th from 12 to 8 p.m. Location event is this side parking lot of the Utica Auditorium, 400 Oriskany Street West, Utica, New York. Be it further resolved that this permit is conditioned upon the permittees defending, indemnifying, and holding harmless the city of Utica, its agents, and employees from any liability allegedly occurring as a result of the activities authorized herein, and providing liability insurance naming the city of Utica as an insured in the amount of not less than $1 million for general liability and $1 million for liquor liability. A certificate showing such insurance to be in full force and effect shall be with the Corporation Council before undertaking the permit activities.
I believe the Friday is June 11th. I don't know if that makes a difference. I don't believe those.
It will.
Let me take a look. This is incorrect.
My assistant in back of me pointed that out.
You were right. So this has to be corrected.
My fellow legislator.
All right.
That's okay.
Well, June 11th is a Friday.
So it should be
Okay,
11,
so it's
should
going to be,
11, 12, and 13.
so I'd like to make an amendment to this. I'd like to change the dates of events. It should go from June 10th to June 11th, Friday. Saturday, should go from June 11th to June 12th. And Sunday, it should go from June 12th to June 13th. All times remain the same and location.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Any opposed to the amendment? Obviously, there's no one opposed. Fixing. All right, your votes.
9 E's adopted.
Anything else this evening?
Make a motion to adjourn.
No, we can't. Ask no one All right, so there's no second to the adjournment.
I'm all set. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you. Council at large, Frank DeBrango, you have the floor.
All right,
I wasn't
thank
going
you,
to
Mr.
let him
President.
take the meeting out on you.
I did write some notes earlier, and last week, as you mentioned, on Memorial Day, a 16-year-old female in West Utica. Obviously, anybody that gets shot, I can't, for the life of me, I can't understand why people shoot other people, but it's totally unreal. But I have to, thank the UPD officers, Mannion and Mowers. They provided first aid, providing a seal over the wound of the chest. This way no air can get in there. And by the time UFD arrived, they had some life-saving efforts to save this individual's life. So I can't express it. You hear a lot of bad things about the police and this thing, without them being there in a timely manner and saving this young female's life is outstanding work. And believe me, being a former firefighter and going through something like that, you don't feel the effects that day, but the next day you think about it. And these two gentlemen did an excellent job. I want to commend Bruce Karam of the Utica School District. He fought to obtain state aid for funding that our students deserve and are entitled to. And this could be a game changer. The district was underfunded for years. Per student, you're supposed to get a certain amount of money per student, and we've been underfunded for years. And this could be a game changer, and it could amount to maybe millions of dollars. So I want to commend him for putting that fight up. I guess it was turned down by a lower court, but they went to the appellate division and they reversed the ruling. So it's a step in the right direction to give these kids some tools to work with, especially during the pandemic. When people didn't have computers or laptops, this may help us in the long run, to fund these schools the proper way, because we've been underfunded for years. And Katie, we're going to miss you. You were always professional. You always had the answers. You always answered us in a timely manner. And I appreciate you did everything for the city. With that being said, I am done. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you. All right, real quick, before that motion to adjourn, I'd like to note all the members of the public that have come to the evening, or come to the council this evening. Thank you for keeping an eye on your government. It's appreciated that you stuck through the meeting. Typically people walk out after certain things, public comment. You've stuck through this and watched the proceedings, so thank you for that.
I'm not saying nothing.
Can I move to adjourn, please?
All right, we've got a motion to adjourn. Second? All right, thank you.